Now that the big dance is over, it's time to fully focus on college football. The first team up for me, Ohio State. Let's go. What's going on, everybody? It's me again, Golden Blue Dude, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're already a subscriber, don't forget to share this video. The big dance in March Madness is over, so now it's time to fully focus on college football. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give a season preview of each team, as many teams as possible. Hopefully, I can get through all 130 teams. The first team I chose was Ohio State. The Big Ten really pops out to me as could be up in the air. Ohio State has been head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big Ten, but this year could be a little bit different. We all know that Ohio State lost Justin Fields and Trey Sermon to the NFL. They also lost defensive lineman Tommy Toga and cornerback Shaun Wade. But Ohio State has a lot of talent coming back, more than people realize. However, I do have to admit that defense is going to have to be reworked in 2021. A lot of new faces. Defensive end Jonathan Cooper, linebackers Borland, Browning, Warner, and Hilliard are all gone. Perspective-wise, that's not a big talent hit, but it is a big experience hit. Last year, Ohio State averaged 41 points per game. That was 11th in the nation, and allowed 25.8 points per game, which was 43rd in the nation. They kind of reminded me of the Oklahoma teams that made the playoffs, except they actually won a playoff game. They averaged 519 offensive yards per game, allowed 402 offensive yards per game. The big name that's coming back that a lot of people had moving on is Chris Olave. He's actually coming back to Ohio State. Last year, he had 50 receptions for 729 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's a big win for Ohio State. And I don't think the running game is going to take as big of a hit as people think. Yes, they lost Trey Sermon, but Master Teague, he'll be back. Last year, he had 104 carries for 514 yards, averaging 4.9 yards a carry and 8 touchdowns. But he will have some competition at that running back position. In no way is it a lock right now. Now, on offense, the wide receiving core, this is where Ohio State is going to be one of the best in the nation. Like I mentioned earlier, Chris Olave, he's coming back. But to go along with him, wide receiver Garrett Wilson, he had 43 receptions for 723 yards and 6 touchdowns. Wide receiver Jameson Williams, 9 receptions for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Julian Fleming, 7 receptions for 74 yards. Wide receiver Jackson Smith Nigba, 10 receptions for 49 yards and 1 touchdown. And they have tight end Jeremy Ruckert coming back. 13 receptions for 151 yards and 5 touchdowns. So their wide receiving core is going to be fine. 3 of their 5 offensive line starters will be back as well. They did lose center Josh Myers and right guard Wyatt Davis. That's going to hurt a little bit, but they do have Harry Miller, Matthew Jones, Paris Johnson Jr., and DeJuan Jones to fill those shoes. Everybody's especially going to be paying attention to Harry Miller. He was the left guard for last year, but they're trying to transition him to center, and he was recruited as a 5-star center. So he is more than capable of filling in at the center spot. Another big-time name coming back for Ohio State on the offensive line is left tackle Chris Manford. Going back to the running back position, Master Teague, he'll be competing with Steel Chambers, Mayan Williams, and Marcus Crowley. And all of those are very talented running backs. So if it came down to a tiebreaker, I think they'll go with experience and Master Teague. On defense is where things could really get interesting for Ohio State. They lost a bunch of linebackers, so they're going to have to make up for that. But they do get defensive end Zach Harrison back, safeties Marcus Hooker, Lathan Ransom, and Josh Proctor. That's a big deal. Defensive back Marcus Williamson, he'll be back. And the cornerback position, even though Shaun Wade left, it's looking pretty good as well. You got cornerback Savon Banks, he'll be back, and cornerback Cameron Brown. Now, there is some improvement that needs to happen, but they do have the experience and knowledge to make Ohio State at least a halfway decent defense. The quarterback battle is where everybody's eyes are on right now. You got C.J. Stroud, Jack Miller III, and Cal McCord. Kyle McCord, he's a true freshman, so he probably is not really going to be in this race. So it's going to be between CJ Stroud and Jack Miller. And right now they're saying CJ Stroud looks just a little bit better. Both of these quarterbacks are capable of running the ball just like Justin Fields. So Ohio State is really focusing their quarterback recruiting on dual threat quarterbacks. That's what Ryan Day really likes to look at when he's looking at quarterbacks. So yes, losing Justin Fields and Trey Sermon is a big hit, but Ohio State has plenty of talent and plenty of experience coming back, especially on offense. And the biggest news was Chris Olave coming back at Ohio State. That is a massive deal for the Buckeyes. So whenever I'm trying to predict a good season and a bad season for a team, I look at returning starters and their schedule. So yes, Ohio State does lose Justin Fields and Trey Sermon, but they have a lot of talent coming back. So now it's time to look at their schedule and see what the threshold for a bad season would be. Their first game, September 2nd at Minnesota. Minnesota lost their starting quarterback and a lot of talent. That should be a win. September 11th, a home game versus Oregon. That's going to be a tough game, but it is in the Horseshoe. Last year they were supposed to go to Oregon to play the Ducks, but because of COVID, that got canceled. This year, it's going to be played in the Horseshoe, but it was supposed to be a home and home. I think it being a home game, Ohio State definitely has the edge. Then September 18th, a home game against Tulsa. Don't look past Tulsa. Last year, they gave Oklahoma State fits, and they looked really, really good. And Tulsa didn't lose all that much as far as starting production. Don't look past them, but it is in the Horseshoe. I'll take Ohio State. Next up, September 25th, a home game against Akron. Should be an easy win for Ohio State. Next up, October 2nd at Rutgers. Greg Schiano has Rutgers going back to the success that they had in the Big East days. They're looking really, really good. This could be a tricky road game for Ohio State, but I'm giving it to the Buckeyes because of talent. Next game, October 9th, a home game against Maryland. That's just going to be a tune-up game. Easy win for Ohio State. Then a very key matchup, October 23rd at Indiana. Last year, Indiana almost came back from a big deficit to beat Ohio State. This is going to be on the road. Indiana has pretty much everybody coming back. This could be a toss-up game. I can't give this to Ohio State for sure. And right after that, October 30th, a home game against Penn State. Penn State is going to be much improved, and they're going to be dangerous. It is in the Horseshoe, but still, I can't 100% give it to Ohio State. Next, we have November 6th at Nebraska. Nebraska is still rebuilding, and they might be rebuilding for the next 5 years. Easy win for Ohio State. Then, November 13th, a home game against Purdue. I do think Purdue is going to be better in the Big Ten West, but not good enough to go into the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State. I'll give Ohio State the win there. The next game, November 20th, another home game against Michigan State. Michigan State is in shambles. They're trying to rebuild. I don't know what's going on over there, but I think Ohio State could have their best game against Michigan State and just throttle them. Ohio State big. Then the last game, November 27th at Michigan. This is a rivalry game. They restructured Jim Harbaugh's contract, so it looks like they're trying to light a fire up under his rear end. So maybe he'll have a good season, maybe not. We'll see. But this game is in the big house, and Michigan does return a lot of production. So I can't say Ohio State for sure, but yes, I would definitely lean in the direction of Ohio State. So for me, for Ohio State's 2021 football season, for it to reach the threshold of a failure, they need to get at least 10 wins. Anything under 10 wins, and this is a complete failure of a season for Ohio State. But I don't expect them to go undefeated, and I do think a one-loss Ohio State would be slightly overachieving. So I have Ohio State going 10-2. But I still think they'll be in the conversation of the college football playoffs at the end of the year and have a chance when they play Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.